Welcome to On the Chain. This is Chip with my co-host Jeff. What's going on, Jeff?
What is up, Chip?
I feel like I haven't seen you in 24 hours. We have such a great show put together for you tonight. Why is that? Because we have none other than Matt Hamilton, principal developer advocate for RippleX, is joining us tonight. We're super excited. Let's not delay. Jeff, you ready to do this?
I'm ready. Let's
get into it. Let's go, guys.
Let's go.
Welcome to On the Chain.
All right, Chip, this is exciting. This is really exciting. Really looking forward to the conversation with Matt Hamilton. I think it's going to be outstanding. You know, we want to hear all about his adventures over there at Apex and RippleX, and all the things that he's able to talk to us about. Should we bring Matt in?
Let's bring him in. Let's get a big warm welcome for Matt Hamilton, who is the one and only principal developer advocate at Ripple. Matt, welcome to On the Chain.
Hi, folks. Hi, Chip. Hi, Jeff.
It's so great to see you here because, and also we always appreciate once in a while you bounce in the chats and, it's always great no matter what. But to get you on here, I know thank you for doing this. I know we reached out a couple times and, you're just fantastic to say like, yeah, I'll do On the Chain. Let's do it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, I'm glad to be here, and I've moved recently, and so I'm now the same time zone as you, Chip. So that makes it doable. Whereas it used to be
really cool.
You guys were on, and it was, I don't know, like about midnight. So I would occasionally catch you, but now, hence why I jump in the chat every now and then when I see you live, because it's
how's the weather where you're at?
Nice and warm. It's
nice.
It's nice here. Yeah. So I moved to Barbados from the UK about 6-7 weeks ago. And it's
going to be weird not having a winter, because when I first moved to Florida from New York, it was like, wait a minute, this is great. You don't care what the weather is anymore. You're just like, hey, it's either really hot, kind of warm, or beautiful. I mean, I don't know, more it rains.
Yeah, here the temperature stays the same. You have a wet season and a dry season. We're in the wet season, but which technically, I mean, Barbados gets more rain per year than the UK does, right? Which seems strange, but it's concentrated, right? You'll get a torrential downpour for 5 minutes and then it stops. And
like Miami.
In the UK, it never stops. Right?
In the UK, it never stops. You just get this miserable drizzle forever, right? And it's like
a lot of sun.
I think I was there the few times they had sunshine. It was just like,
same here. I was always lucked
glorious. Out. And everybody's out skipping and dancing in the streets because
the beer gardens are phenomenal, man. You get the beer gardens with a little bit of sun out there. Oh man, hitting a couple pints, beautiful. Yeah, so everyone's saying, we got Tony Morissette, Hi Hammer Toe. He put the little emoji in there. We got Crypto Bird Dog in here, who's another OG in the space, saying awesome. So it's really great. And we'll throw some comments up, but I kind of want to get right into, Apex conference. What a great conference. I was fortunate enough to not join throughout the whole thing, but what I saw was so inspirational, so upbeat. And it was really a well done conference that you and your team put together over there at RippleX. It was really great. So let's kind of break it down. I want to get some of your thoughts on, some of the big key takeaways. And I know there's a lot, but I kind of want to get a couple of them, and then we'll kind of like focus on some of them and kind of get into them, because there's a lot of things that sort of happened there, especially this new program too. The second part of the program that you're going to go out, and I think it has to do with you're going to fund some people who are building in the NFT space.
So there's quite a few announcements that happened, and I mean the conference was amazing, and I've really got to give a shout out to my colleagues, especially to Selena at Ripple, who's done an amazing job at putting it all together. But everybody that was involved, both from Ripple and from the XRP Ledger Foundation, because this was happening in 2 locations, both in Las Vegas and in Estonia. And so there were talks happening in Estonia. Some of the keynotes from Estonia were streamed over, so we had Vitsuvind and Bharath from the XRP Ledger Foundation. They were streamed in. But yeah, I mean the live streaming team at Ripple and the events team and everybody and all the speakers from the community, I mean, really made it an awesome event. And the stage, I mean, you saw the stage, right? It looked phenomenal with the people coming out the middle, and it was good. So, but yeah, there was a lot of announcements. So there was the XRP Ledger grants program. Now, wave 1 of that has finished, and we had some of the speakers were some of the grantees from that first wave that came on and talked about stuff that they were building or stuff that they were doing. And then we announced the start of wave 2. So we're now funding a bunch more. I think we funded in total, I think it was about $2 million worth of projects in that first fund, the first wave. So we're funding a bunch more. We're opening for submissions for wave 2. And then separate to that was the NFT Creator Fund, which was the $250 million fund for creators looking to build stuff with NFTs. So I'm not directly involved in that one, but that was, obviously a big announcement there as well, going on with that. So there was a lot of good stuff, and there was about 1,300 people, I think, in total on the virtual platform. There was about 80 in Vegas. There was about 20 in Tallinn. It was all pretty cool.
Amazing. It's so outstanding. And one of the things, Matt, that we talk about a lot, there's obviously this persistent case with the SEC v. Ripple, yet the Ripple development has just been phenomenal. What we're seeing within, the support of the community, development on the XRPL, and just, it's outstanding. And you're kind of in there behind the scenes, seeing it all happen.
Yeah. And the amount of stuff that's happened in the past 6 months, year or so in the XRP community, the XRP Ledger developer community, has been huge. So many cool stuff, so many cool things are being built. So many projects going on, and events like Apex. And then coming up next week is Ubri Connect, which is the conference that Ripple does for Ubri, which is the University Research Blockchain Initiative. University Blockchain Research Initiative. I always get the back to front. University Blockchain Research Initiative, which is about 30 universities across the globe. Ripple have created a program that to help fund them in research around blockchains, not even necessarily XRP, but a lot of them are doing stuff with the XRP ledger and building stuff. So, for example, Scott Chamberlain, who presented his stuff with Evernode, that was part of the stuff that he created with Ubri originally, or spun out of some of the stuff that he did with Ubri initially. So there's just so much that's been going on, and it really has been fantastic. So, and then you've got the background of all the SEC stuff going on, right? So considering all the SEC stuff's going on, it's amazing that everything's doing so well, right? I mean, you get all the detractors that say whatever they want to say about XRP and everything, but considering the fact that there's this lawsuit going on, everything is going, pretty well in the community. There's just a lot of building, a lot of people building stuff, which is fantastic. And then there was the news today, John Deaton's news that he's basically allowed to kind of sort of join in. And from what I gather, I'm not a lawyer, but from what I gather, it basically means that, Ripple and the 20,000 people he's representing,
22,000. I think it's almost 23,000 now. I guarantee that number is probably going to grow magically over the next 5-10 days. People that were sitting on the sidelines will be like, I'm all in, I want to be a part of it.
100%.
Yeah, so I mean, they're able to kind of the courts, from what I understand, the courts are saying that their interests and Ripple's interests are the same. So in damaging Ripple, you're damaging them, and damaging them, you're damaging Ripple, etc. So there's a lot that's been going on. Like I said, even considering all of that regulatory mess. Right.
I mean, and it's almost, and this is what Jeff and I cover pretty much every night. It's a Ripple partner. It's Ripple. They're putting up a blog post, a Ripple drop of this, that. Like time marches on, and look, this is one of the things that Ripple does great. Between RippleX, Ripple, the Ubri the program, really out there consistently doing the work. And one of the things, Jeff, I want you to talk a little bit about this. We had a conversation about this, and kind of, if you wouldn't just elaborate on your thing about XRP, and if it was an investment, look at this giant news that happened today. Jeff, you want to elaborate on that? I know you brought that up today, as far as the price of XRP and this whole great news we got.
So Matt, I think it's interesting, and this kind of has been kind of a consistent theme where you see positive news coming out from Ripple, project, whatever it might be, yet the price of XRP always stays relatively stable to the price of XRP. So positive news comes out regarding, John Deaton and the case with intervention into this case. The price of XRP stays at $1.05. You can see like major, fluctuation, so positive news doesn't have like, based on the case, the SEC is like, oh, it's all connected and people are there only because, of Ripple. And now we're seeing here's positive news, yet the price is still consistently stable.
Well, I mean, the funny thing being is, right, we used to joke about this like 3 or 4 years ago in the XRP community, right, that when positive news comes out, the price dropped.
Right. Most of the time, yeah.
Most of the time, suddenly some positive news comes out, the price drops, and you're like, what? So maybe this is progress. I don't know. But yeah, and you saw earlier this week, there was, end of last week, was it? There was that fake press release that got out.
Yeah.
And, that was a Newswire service. I don't know what happened behind that, but there was a Newswire service that published something that then Yahoo then automatically republished. And you saw the price jump up as a result of that and then come back down. But the nice thing was it came back down to where it was, right? When people were like, oh, that's crazy, which was good, because I saw it and I was thinking, is it going to drop down further? That's what often happens, right? That it suddenly, tanks even further. But so you're right. I mean, I think it's interesting seeing that, right? That the price seems to be the price, right?
Exactly.
That's a good thing to see. If anything, it follows more the rest of the market. I'll see some massive change in price on XRP, and I go check the charts, and it's like, oh yeah, Bitcoin's doing exactly the same, Ethereum's doing exactly the same, right? Correct. They all just suddenly dropped at one point today, right? Or they all just suddenly went up at one point today. So, yeah. Yeah,
one of the things I want to put up here is James Rule here, right? So if you know James Rule XRP, he's a YouTuber in the space, wonderful community member. So he says if you get paid in XRP, so his everything, his income comes directly from XRP. He gets paid in XRP. You buy things with XRP, you tip with XRP. So via Uphold, he's sending this beautiful tip on the chain right now, XRP, right? I mean, it's amazing. So there you go. He says, cheers, Matt, Chip, and Jeff, wonderful show. And this is one of the greatest things. And I know John Deaton had put one of these, James's example in one of the other filings, all of the different use cases. And, there was a tweet going around about the different use cases. There were so many of them that I absolutely forgot about. There was like, what about this? And what about that? And I was like, man, I totally forgot about them. And we almost don't realize the use cases. So one other thing that happened at Apex too, out of all the announcements, was all the amazing speakers you had, right? Kind of like were from a lot all over the place, but what they were sharing and the knowledge they were sharing, even David Schwartz there, dropping knowledge, it's just amazing. And of course, I think one of the biggest news events too of this year, and my personal opinion, is the Federated sidechain, because I love the approach of leave the XRP alone, don't try to change it, but how can you enhance it with a sidechain? Open one up, close it up. I mean, that's a pretty big deal, right, Matt?
Yeah, I think so. And it's one of those things, it's trying to strike a balance, right? Because the great thing with the XRP ledger is it's decentralized, right? And the governance is decentralized. If you want to make a change to the protocol, if you want to introduce a new feature, then everybody's got to agree. Now, for example, coming up is native NFT support on a ledger, this XLS 20 standard, right? So there's been various standards, XLS 15, XLS 19 that have been created by Wietwind and Calvin Schultz, that represent NFTs on the ledger. And then there's this NFT, XLS 20 NFT standard, which is making NFTs like a first-class object in the XRP ledger. It means we can store them much more efficiently. We know the difference between an NFT and a fungible token that's just very small, right? Because at the moment, if you said list all the currencies, then you get every single NFT listed as a separate currency in effect, right? Whereas you'd probably want to say, give me all the currencies, give me all the NFTs, right? As separate things. So this is something that's been worked on actually by Nick Bugalis and Anchal at Ripple have been working on this. But that amendment, that would be an amendment on the ledger, and that has to be approved by the rest of the validators, right? So as exciting as NFTs are, it could well be that the rest of the XRP ledger community, for whatever reason, say, we don't want that, right? And,
Yeah,
and if they do that, then what do? It doesn't pass, right? Ripple don't have any like preferential ability. I mean, okay, we've got soft power in some ways, right? We're fairly influential in that regards, but ultimately it's not our decision. And there have been amendments that have taken like 2 years to get passed. On the checks amendment was, I think, 2.5 years to get passed. And a similar thing could happen with NFTs. And actually, I spend a lot of my job saying to my colleagues internally within Ripple, well, hold on a second here. The community has to vote on that. We can't plan, okay, we're launching this on the 1st of whatever month, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this. I'm saying, whoa, wait a minute. An amendment has to be created, has to go out. Everybody has to upgrade the servers to that version. Then there has to be a vote on it. And, it could take months. So, I mean, the reality is Ripple, we don't control the ledger. In some ways, if we did, that would make our lives a lot easier. But we don't, right? So realistically, we don't. We've got to make sure that people are, excited about this technology and are going to, go for it. Now, the reason why I mentioned this in relation to sidechains is the advantage with sidechains is you can effectively spin up a separate, version of the XRP ledger that uses all the same software, but you're more in control of it, right? So you're trading off in some ways decentralization for control. And you could say, okay, I want NFT support, I want hook support, I want the Chipmaster 3000 support, right? So you can enable that, and it's entirely up to the validators on your side chain, not the main chain, and you may have more control over that, right? So if you're the Royal Monetary Authority of Bhutan and you're issuing your CBDC, then you might want some functionality on that side chain. And so you can then enable that functionality specifically. And you don't have to get everybody to come along with that ride, right? Because otherwise, if you think about what happens is if we have to upgrade the XRP ledger for every single use case that everybody wants, then it's going to become quite bloated and have like so many bits and pieces. And once a feature's enabled, you can't really disable it, right? Because somebody's going to be using it. And it might just be one person somewhere that's using it. You can't really disable it then. So, you don't want to be enabling stuff without a good feel that it's going to be used. So it might be that you actually deploy something on a side chain and people start using it. You go, oh, well, that's really good. Well, maybe we should try and enable that on the main chain then. And then you can see whether people want to kind of take that on.
Matt, what are your thoughts on when you're bringing this up with Bhutan and this idea of the CBDC? And obviously, there's a lot of conversation going around the world right now as all these central banks are trying to figure out, hey, can they add a digital currency? And there's a drastic difference between a central bank digital currency built on a side chain or somehow utilizing the XRP ledger versus just designing a digital currency, right? Could you kind of get into maybe just a little bit touching on, is one, better or worse than the other? And especially if we're focused on centralization versus still maintaining some semblance of decentralization.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, that's the trade-off, right? And in any engineering discipline, you've got trade-offs, and cryptocurrencies are no different, right? And each cryptocurrency makes different trade-offs for things, right? The Ethereum has, Turing complete smart contracts you can do everything with. You trade off speed and price and complexity and all that kind of stuff. The XRP ledger is designed to do payments really well, and move value around really well. So we wouldn't want to kind of bloat the XRP ledger with a lot of other stuff that might detract away from what it's really good at, right? It'd be no good if, it's like, we've got NFTs, but now every transaction costs $1, right? So you don't want to kind of harm the existing kind of functionality there and the existing kind of attributes of the system. So by having a separate sidechain, you don't have to do that. So again, that comes down with CBDCs and, Bhutan. Bhutan's amazing, right? Bhutan, they don't use gross national product or gross domestic product, GDP, as a measure of success. They use gross happiness as a measure of success, right? That is how they measure their year-on-year success, is how happy they are. And they've got like a number of metrics that feed into that. And I think, economic is one element of that. But they basically kind of see how everybody's feeling, and I think that's awesome. And Bhutan is also the only country in the world that is net carbon negative, because most of their power is, I believe, hydroelectric power, and they're a pretty small country, but they're net carbon negative, right? So for them, choosing the XRP ledger was a big deal because they wanted something that was, carbon neutral.
Well, it's a perfect pairing, right? I mean, it really, it kind of fits in with the whole ecosystem, and the whole idea of, I think one of the probably things came out of it. There was, I think it was Saudi Arabia, if I remember correctly, where they were saying like, yeah, this is great, we love it, but we really don't want to have our banking clients be public. So the whole idea of a private ledger makes a little bit of sense, and when you're dealing with a bank, right? And then you're talking about not bloating that. And then one of the great things I love about, like the last amendment that just passed, had to do with lowering, the minimum to open a wallet from 20 XRP down to 5, and of course the trust line from 5 down. I believe it was 2, right? Or maybe
20 to 10 and 5 to 2, yeah. And just to be clear, that wasn't an amendment. I mean, that was a vote on the network, but it wasn't. It was an amendment. Okay, slightly separately. They're not amendments, but that's just a technicality. But it was a vote that happened on the network. Similarly, it has to get 80%.
80%.
No,
right,
it might be 50% for fees. I think it might be a simple majority. But and that's why actually when it was close to it, if you looked very closely, you may have seen actually the price wavered backwards. The amount you needed wavered backwards and forwards slightly, because there was one validator that was just sort of on the fence and was coming off online. So, but it stabilized pretty quickly. The fees were voted down. But you're right. You don't want, as a central bank or a bank, you don't necessarily want all of your transactions public, right? And again, this goes down to trade-offs, right? You've got some currencies, cryptocurrencies like Monero and things like that focus on privacy. You've got some people that say, well, the whole beauty of a blockchain is everything's public, right? Imagine so what is it that's just come out? Not the Panama Papers, Paradise Papers. What's the next? I can't remember what it is. The papers that just came out yesterday.
I'll tell you, it's in our. We were going to talk about it last night. We never quite got to it, but that happens sometimes.
And anyway, they came out, and now if you imagine that all of those transactions were on a public blockchain, it would make it much harder to hide that, that financing that's going on. And that's what a lot of people say, that having a public blockchain, you can't really have corruption because all of the transactions are private. But then again, you don't necessarily, as individuals, want all of your transactions, public, right? So there's always a trade-off there. And the idea behind the sidechains is that a bank can keep their ledger basically separate, and then interface with the main XRP ledger kind of as and when necessary. And what's interesting is this is actually really nothing new in some regards, right? Every single exchange has a private ledger, right? So Coinbase has a private ledger, right? If you've got an account, Chip, on Coinbase, and Jeff, you've got an account on Coinbase, Coinbase have a database underneath that says Chip holds 100 XRP and Jeff holds 200 XRP, right? And it's a ledger, right? And it's a database that just keeps track of who holds what. And when one of you buys or sells, then that ledger is updated. So Coinbase have an internal ledger. It's a centralized database, but it is an accounting ledger nonetheless. So, and so do banks, right? They have that. Pandora Papers, thank you. So they, there's no real difference to this in having sidechains and CBDCs on a private ledger. It's just rather than a centralized database, it is actually somewhat decentralized as they want to make it. But more importantly, it uses exactly the same technology as the main XRP ledger, which has been running for a decade, is well tested, well engineered. You get all of the features of the XRP ledger, for free. So, it makes a lot of sense there.
Amazing. I like that idea. I really love the idea of the sidechain. I think it's adding it's almost game changing, for the space, especially as we look at this development and bringing in more and more of the banking involvement. I always looked at, the banks utilizing XRP, even if it was just a rail to fulfill settlement. They look at their space kind of being occupied a little bit by retail holders of the digital asset. Now, if you have the side chain, and allowing the banks and some of the other, maybe a central bank to maintain a little bit more of the privacy, a little semblance of some centralized control. Maybe that's one of the things that they really want, for mass adoption. I mean, I could be completely off base on that one, but it always seemed to me that there's a little separation there.
Exactly. I think you're right there, right? And you're not going to get all of these banks to suddenly stick everything on a public ledger. It's just not going to go. And there's a comment I just saw here from Joshua Vanderplatz asking, do you see Ripple assisting in maintaining banks and countries sidechains as a business model? Well, I don't know. I'm not privy to the business arrangements of what's going on with Bhutan, but Ripple are helping them with that. So there could well be an element of that. I don't know how much that would be kind of like Ripple's business model to do that. But again, it could be anybody's business model, right? We could set up, Chip, Jeff, and Matt's, sidechain business, and we go around and set up sidechains for Caribbean islands, right? So,
perfect.
That kind of thing is doable by anybody, because again, like I said, it is decentralized, and anybody can set up a sidechain and do that, right? It just so happens that Ripple have experience with banks at a large scale, and so can help them with that from their experience.
Exactly. One of the things I want to go back to your last conversation, you said, yeah, it's been running for 10 years. Just think how crazy, amazing, important that is. 10 years. I mean, 10 years in the crypto world, they always talk about dog years and human years. I don't even know what 10 years is. I mean, if we go back 12 years to Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper, heck, that's a long time. That's OG, status right there. And, and this is where I think a lot of people have got it wrong. And this is one of the things, Matt, I think you've been so eloquent, and before you even went to work for Ripple, because you were debating people and going in communities and setting them straight on exactly what happened in the beginning. Because in the beginning there was OpenCoin, right? And the whole idea that, and this is where I think a lot of people have got it wrong. I don't want to focus on SEC, but a lot of people out there have got it wrong. They don't quite understand the whole decentralization. They don't understand the consensus part. And that's okay if you don't understand, but rather than ask questions or seek like some solutions or guidance, they completely missed the boat. And when they were minted, Ripple assumed them. Ripple didn't go out there and mint them. It was done. Ripple built the XRPL, right? Yeah.
So, yeah.
Hey, before you, I got a comment on this one real quick.
Matt, you have to go real quick.
I've just got to go real quick.
Yeah, let me just take you out.
I'll be right back.
When you're back, I'm going to take you out for 1 second.
Those frogs in the background. Have you ever heard, the Coqui frogs in Puerto Rico? Man,
this is one of my famous segues, dude. What the hell? This
you hear it in the background, like through the open window here.
Oh, you hear that?
The frogs.
I know there's a great New Order song where the frogs are in there, but
it's called a whistling frog. So they have these whistling frogs throughout that region, and those are the frogs in the background.
Weird. So you actually heard that, huh?
Yeah.
Hey, I hear James Real says OTC sidechains, baby.
OTC sidechains, OTC.
There you go.
That's right. Hey, I want to give a quick shout out to my dad. My dad has been on, and then he was hiding people too. So
welcome.
We got that all sorted out. We unhid Jim D. I went on and was able to unhide him. The one thing is, you accidentally, if you're scrolling up through stuff, you can accidentally hide people. You can time them out. And I've done it to people. I'm like, and then it's gone. I'm like, oh, who did I just hide? And then if they're hidden, trying to go back and figure out how to, it's.
Yeah, we did hear something crash in the background. So I want to just make sure everything's cool. When Matt comes back, we'll be able to see him. We can see him when he comes back. I'll probably wave to the camera. Right? But, one of the things that I think, is amazing, and this is, again, to Matt's testament, is how he's been doing this for years. This is his first time. He's been doing this evangelism for years. And if you guys go back 3, 4, or 5 years, you'll know. And of course, if you're not following him, he's at Hammertoe. Write down in the comments. If you happen to be new in here, you're not following him, I'll be surprised. But if you're not, and also there's a really great blog post that's also in the comments, which Matt penned not too long ago, but kind of breaking down the myths of all this, like, the ledger's not decentralized, all these myths you always hear, and a lot of people come at you. It's a great resource. You guys want to click on that link, read it. But someone goes, well, hey, tell me why this. You might not have the answer, but he uses plain English to sort of spell it out, and it's easy to understand too. One of the things I like about what Matt put together. So that was like the two things featured down in the comments. But
really cool.
Yeah, just for a little sidestep, this Deaton, I kind of jumped the gun a little bit. I saw that when I first read it, it said, won't allow the motion to intervene, and it's not really intervene. It's like to join in a way. And
right, yeah, she
so I kind of jumped the gun, and some people kind of jumped out there like, Chip, why would you put this out there? It's fun. I'm like, hey man, I jumped the gun. I got a little too excited. I hit retweet, and and
the FOMO, Chip.
I threw it out there, and someone said, why don't you just delete the tweet? I go, I just did. I deleted the tweet. But I'm like, it's a human thing to do. You're like, what? You start panicking. And then I go, wait, whoa. Let me actually read some stuff here. And then I realized, hey, man, this is okay. This is actually a really good thing. Because I read it. It was actually a couple other tweets that people were covering. And all of a sudden I said, okay, this is why it's fantastic. And look at JB, who we had on last week.
There you go.
It was awesome. Looking forward to hearing him speak on the creation of XRP. Open coin and how it was gifted to Ripple. Yeah, we should jump into that because I think that's key. Yeah, that's a good point, Jay. I think we definitely should jump into that. And
in the meantime, Chip, we have some just to give a quick shout out. Anybody who is in here right now that's brand new to On the Chain and you've never been here before, and you said, hey, you know what? This is amazing. It's great conversation, great subscribers, great people commenting. Why don't you go ahead, just hit that subscribe button. You can click the bell notifier. And while you're at it, hit the thumbs up. Very cool. There's always one person out there that gives us a thumbs down.
Keeps
us guessing. Never know who it's going to be. We always try to guess. But go ahead and do that. That'd be awesome. And this week is going to be packed, filled with amazing content. Tomorrow night, it's going to be Chip and I going solo. We're going to obviously have a lot of great things to talk about. Wednesday, we have an amazing project. We are going to bring in the CEO of this amazing project in on Wednesday. All of this while we're gearing up for Thursday night with none other than Jeremy Hogan and the man, the myth, the legend, John Deaton.
Yeah, Jeff, we had him on the very first show. One of the things we said, John, you are a superhero, and he has proven that to the XRP community because he's doing this all pro bono. I mean, and a lot of people that try to start like GoFundMe's and this and that. And John's like, look, he's got a lot of integrity. He goes, I'm not doing this. I'm doing this for the community. This is my contribution. He's fought tooth and nail. He's really put together a really solid thing. And it's amazing to see something really happen for it. So if you're wondering where Matt is, Matt had to step aside for a moment. If you're just joining us, he stepped aside. We think we heard some dishes crash, dish or something crash. And
it was those little coqui frogs.
And Jeff was hearing
frogs. You can't see them, and I think they knocked him off the shelf.
Well, Jeff, we'll launch into a story about a frog. So I remember, here he is. So Matt's back. I was going to tell us frog story. We'll save it for tomorrow night.
Matt,
you could hear the frogs in the background, the whistling frogs.
We can hear the whistling frogs in the background. It's just like in Puerto Rico. I'm listening. I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm in Puerto Rico.
Yeah. They're a little quieter in the house here, but I mean, just the other side of the wall here. I mean, they're it's almost deafening at night, right? It's really
loud,
strangely loud. Yeah.
So it's great though. I love it. I'm picking it up.
I do hear it now. I do hear it. I was like, what is that?
I feel like it.
With a thing in the background. Okay, now I get it. Yeah. I just thought it was my headphones were a little wonky, but hey. But when you were gone, so I want to throw this up here on the screen. We had JV here. JV says, hey, looking forward to hear Matt speak on the creation of XRP, open coin, and how it was gifted to Ripple. Would you mind because a lot of people don't know this. You want to sort of.
Yeah. I mean, this is the funny thing is that a lot of people come in when they start mouthing off XRP, right? They don't realize that the XRP's been around a long time, right? It was the second major cryptocurrency after Bitcoin, and it came about 3 years before Ethereum even did, right?
Right.
Vitalik went sort of touring around the world and ended up at Ripple's office, and he used to, he's sofa surfed for a few weeks on Stefan Thomas, who was the CTO of Ripple at the time's couch, right? And I was wondering whether Stefan was going to mention any of this at Apex in his fireside chat with David, because it's quite an interesting story, right? Vitalik went to try and get an internship at Ripple, but the US government wouldn't grant him a visa as a Russian national to work there. And in the end, he left and he created Ethereum, right? Separately. So, you kind of think if that visa had been granted, what would the cryptocurrency ecosystem look like now, right? Where things would have been very different. But yeah, back onto your original thing. So, so if you go right back to the start. So it started off, there's a post on Bitcoin Talk in which Jed McCaleb, who is now is he CEO of Stellar? Anyway, head of Stellar, whatever.
Yeah.
Creator of Stellar. But he originally, and he was involved in Mt. Gox and a few other bits and pieces. But he basically posted this thing and said, "Hey, look, what if you could do Bitcoin but without the mining, right? What if you could do Bitcoin and find a way to do Bitcoin and make it faster?" And anyway, he ended up getting in touch with David Schwartz and Arthur Brito as well, I believe, was originally part of it, and basically saying, "Okay, well, let's try and build this thing, right?" So he kind of came up with the idea, and David started building it, and they built this thing, which is now the XRP Ledger. Now they also joined. There was a guy called Ryan Fugger, Fugger. I don't know how to pronounce his surname, but he's a Canadian guy who in 2004 created a thing called Ripple, right? And 2004's Ripple was the one that Satoshi Nakamoto famously referenced and said, "It's the only other interesting thing besides Bitcoin. It's the only other thing that decentralizes trust," right? I'm paraphrasing slightly. I can't remember his exact words, but something like that. And so that Ripple at the time, that was created before Bitcoin even existed, right? And it was a payment system that kept track of who owed what, right? So if we go out for lunch and I buy you guys lunch this time, then maybe it might record down that, okay, you owe me lunch next time, right? Or whatever, right? We all do this informally with our friends and family and all this lot. And this was kind of a way to actually record this and turn it into a monetary system. And it had this ability to do this thing called rippling. And that was, well, if Chip owes me $5 and Jeff owes me $5, then I can effectively pay Jeff by saying, "Chip, that money you owed me, give it directly to Jeff," right?
Gotcha.
And that's what rippling is, right? It's rippling. It's the moving of the debt from one person to another. And so that original Ripple Pay back in 2004, 4 years before Bitcoin had even been thought about, the Bitcoin paper hadn't even come out, was a way to formally track the movement of debt, right? And that's what it was these debt obligations. Anyway, somehow, I don't quite know how actually, David Schwartz and Ryan Fugger ended up meeting, and they rolled Ryan Fugger's original ideas into this new ledger they were creating, this new blockchain that became the XRP ledger. And that's where the name Ripple came from. And then, so the company, Ripple's original name was, as you mentioned, was OpenCoin. They confusingly changed it to Ripple. If I had a time machine, I'd love to go back and say, don't do that. That's going to confuse the hell out of everything, right?
Oh boy, has it ever.
For a while.
Oh yeah, exactly. And so, they rolled that idea in. But that's why the XRP ledger has this notion of rippling debt. It's something that's not actually used that much, but is actually a really interesting concept that no other blockchain really has. And it has the ability to track that currencies might have different issuers and might have slightly different values. So what do I mean by that? A $20 bill might be worth to you slightly different than a $20 Apple gift card, right? And you might say, well, the $20 Apple gift card is actually worth slightly less to me than the $20 bill because I can only spend it at Apple, right? Or you might say it's worth slightly more because I can spend it remotely. A $20 bill I can only hand to somebody in person.
Yeah.
If I've got a physical $20 bill, I can't pay for something online with that, whereas I can a gift card, right? So different people might have different perceptions of what that $20 is actually worth to them. It might be, okay, this is actually worth $21 to me or $19 to me because it's a slightly different form. And the XRP ledger allows you to represent that as well. And you can actually do some quite complex things with it that, mean that if I've got an Apple gift card and Jeff wants to buy something online with Apple, I can pass that to him and he can pass his credit card details you, blah, 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 and it all kind of moves around and balances out, right?
What an amazing concept, except in this example, the Apple gift card has zero value to me. So
right.
I would have to use it as a gift.
Right.
But what an amazing idea, though. I mean, to be able to track and manage and almost monetizing debt in a way, you're utilizing the concept of debt. it's well, I mean, it's amazing that it isn't implemented in some fashion at this point.
Yeah, so I mean, it's on the XRP ledger. I mean, it's there, but
Yeah.
it's
not being
really
utilized in any
used. Exactly, it's not really used that much. And like you said, that Apple gift card has zero value to you, right? And I presume that's because you don't use Apple stuff. So to you, you think, well, it's worth nothing. But you could still buy it and sell it, right? You could buy that gift card and you could sell it. So it might not have any value to you, but you might be able to sell it to Chip, who might say, well, yeah, I'll give you $20 for that, or I'll give you $19 for it, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so you can buy and sell effectively these debts, which are what IOUs are, which are what issued currencies are, and that's what the decentralized exchange allows you to do, right? So before Ripple, I used to run a market maker bot that I wrote on the XRP ledger. It's how I got into XRP, right? I wrote it as a programming exercise between contracts because I was like, well, I want to learn JavaScript. And up to then, I'd only really done Python programming and stayed away from JavaScript. And there was the RippleLib library that allowed you to interact with the XRP ledger. And I knew nothing about blockchain. I knew nothing about cryptocurrency or finance, or I knew a bit about Bitcoin, but that was kind of it. And I wrote a market maker bot that would basically buy and sell on the XRP ledger, and it would buy euros, US dollars, Chinese yuan, Japanese yen, Ethereum, and Bitcoin on the XRP ledger. Now, the Chinese yuan IOU is, again, similar to Jeff with his Apple Card, is worthless to me, right? What can I do with Chinese yuan, right? I can't sell it. I can't even cash it out because I'm not a Chinese national, and I think I'd need to be a Chinese national in order to go through the KYC to cash it out at the other end. But I can still buy it and I can still sell it. So I can buy that, Chinese yuan, and I can then sell it for a slight, 0.01% more, and I can make 0.01% profit. If I can do that enough times, then I can make money on it. So, the XRP ledger has all of these features built in. Kind of going back to your question, so the XRP ledger existed. Then they founded this company, Ripple. They then gave 100 billion XRP was created at the start. They gave 80 to Ripple, kept 20 for the founders. Although not all the founders, David Schwartz actually didn't take any of it, right? David Schwartz was remunerated absolutely zero from the original XRP, right? All the XRP he's had, he's either bought or been, given as salary. So, and the reason he didn't want to take it, he says, is because, well, nobody even knew whether this stuff was legal, right? You go back to 2011, was it, when it was being created, 2010, 2011, 2012, cryptocurrency, well, there's this thing called Bitcoin, there was Silk Road going on, there was, how do you even know if you create this thing, are you going to end up on a list somewhere and blackballed from all future financial transactions? Are you, a black helicopter is going to turn up? Nobody knew at the time, right? So, and trying to look at history using today's kind of lens is very difficult. You have to kind of look at it with the lens of the time and say, okay, well, nobody knew. And that's the same thing when people say, well, Ripple got all of this for free, right? They printed money out of nowhere and they got all this for free. Well, it was worth nothing, right? Exactly. I could have printed a whole bunch of stuff for free back then, and it would probably still be worth nothing.
But you can do it today. I mean, they do. They're called meme coins today. That's what they are. They're worth virtually nothing. So,
and that's one of the flippant remarks I make to some people. I say, well, there's plenty of fresh air, right? Go, and when they say, well, XRP was created out of thin air. Well, I say, well, there's plenty of thin air. Go and make your own, right?
Right.
You'll be rich, right? If you think it's that easy, go ahead. You'll be rich. Come back. Congratulations. We'll see you in a year, right? With your Lambo. So, I think this is the thing, is that, people look at it and go, well, Ripple got all this for free. Well, what they got was worth nothing. And it's only because of the XRP community as a whole that has grown that XRP has been worth something. And they took a punt on it. And, they're in front of the SEC right now, right? So,
yeah, but I mean, so one of the things, I think it was Monica Long that brought, she opened up the show. So at the conference, did a great job. That's a tough gig right there. It's like, you're going first. What? And the reason she did was because I think you were supposed to be on stage, but there was something going on where you just couldn't travel, and that makes sense. So I think she did a great job filling in. But one of the things she brought up that I don't think a lot of people are familiar with is that the first decentralized, way to buy crypto actually was I think Ripple was first with that, right? I mean,
the XRP ledger was the first decentralized exchange. It was, yeah, I think our words were, it's the OG of DEXs, right?
Right. I mean, and people are thinking this is new. It's not new.
Yeah, exactly. The XRP, and the amazing thing being is the XRP ledger is still pretty much one of the only what's called limit order book exchanges, right? So with the XRP ledger, you can place offers to buy and sell cryptocurrencies or any IOU, any asset on the ledger, right? So you can say, I will buy, 1 XRP and I will pay $1.40 for it, right? Or whatever, $1.04, whatever it is at the moment, right? That's what I'm willing to pay, right? Now, Jeff might say, well, I'll buy 1 XRP and I'm willing to pay $1.05. And Chip says, well, I'm willing to pay $1.06, right? And that's what the order book will look like, right? So when somebody comes to sell it, they'll say, well, I'll sell to Chip. And then, if Chip's order's gone, I'll sell to Jeff and I'll sell to Matt's, right?
Right.
So, that's what's called a limit order book. And you basically say, I'm going to sell this amount of asset for this price or buy for this price. And you set the price. Now, the only reason that's possible is because the XRP ledger is so fast that you can place and retract those orders, right? In 3 seconds, it takes to place an order and take it off. Now, that's slow in terms of high frequency trading, but it's fast in terms of blockchains, right? Especially when the state of the art is an hour or 10 minutes for a block to go by. It might be 10 minutes, it might be 20, it might be 5. It's statistically 10 minutes, but it could be.
And it's inexpensive as well.
And it's expensive, right? You're not going to be kind of like placing orders arbitrarily when each order is going to cost you $5 to place the order, right? So, but the XRP ledger was the first decentralized exchange that allowed you to do that for several reasons. One, because it was fast. 2, because you couldn't front run it. Now, with Bitcoin, each block, the miner that mines that block chooses the order in which transactions go in that block. So it is up to the miner whether Chip's order is filled first or Jeff's order is filled first. Now, if the miner is Chip, then the miner might say, hey, fill mine first before Jeff's, right? I want to make the money, and then Jeff can have the leftovers, right? So with a
the miner.
Yeah, with the proof of work blockchain, that's what can happen. And same with Ethereum. And so a lot of the DEXs on Ethereum have a lot of elaborate systems to try and stop this front running. Now, the XRP ledger doesn't have that problem because you can't guarantee the order by which they will occur in, and no one person sets that order, right? The validators as a whole vote on it. You need 80% consensus, but the actual order is set deterministically by the ledger. It's not set by an individual, right? So, and you can't guess what order they're going to go in. It might be Jeff's fills first, might be Chip's fills first. You can't tell. Right. So the XRP ledger allows that order book process to happen. Stellar does, because Stellar was effectively a clone of the XRP ledger originally. And I think one of the most recent ones, I think Serum on Solana, I think possibly does. But between that, which was last year, and nearly 10 years ago, there's no other blockchain that's been able to do that. So because they can't do that, they've created this mechanism called AMMs, automatic market makers. And that is, rather than you saying, all right, I want to buy and sell at this price, you basically just sell, I've got this amount to buy or sell, and you deal with it. And effectively, the blockchain sets the price at which it buys and sells and tries to ensure that you get a profit from that. And that's what Uniswap is. That's what, all of the clones, SushiSwap, et cetera, are all automatic market makers. However, what's interesting is they've actually become very popular because you don't require yourself to be a programmer like myself to write stuff to interact with the decentralized exchange and you don't have to come up with an algorithm by which you can buy or sell to make money. With an AMM, you basically just say, here's my funds, you deal with it, right? So as a result, things like Uniswap have become very popular. Now, what was interesting at Apex was then David Schwartz announces that we're going to create a AMM on the XRP ledger, which will hopefully allow people to be able to stake funds and hopefully make make some profit from their XRP by staking it on the AMM, right?
Right. Yeah. So that's a great idea, Matt. Just quick question. So So it's interesting, as we're talking about this distinction, and one of the things that we look at the XRP ledger, and we said it's probably one of the most, as you're mentioning and validating, probably one of the most advanced technologies that have really proliferated in the space, except the core focus of the XRP ledger has really been utilized mostly up to this point for facilitating remittance payments, cross-border payments. But you have all this technology that has been built into the ledger, so advanced with all these different variables. Then I look at, as you mentioned, with the DEX and the Uniswaps and all those, banks, for the most part, probably aren't going to want to get too actively involved with a Uniswap, whereas they want to be able to utilize a solution, as you had mentioned, that really has to be programmed on the XRP ledger that has a little bit more baked into it. That's more, and so you have RippleNet, and it makes sense. You can't sell Uniswap to the banks, but you can bring RippleNet to them and you say, hey, this is the greatest thing ever. That's not only going to be your messaging, but it's going to be your settlement vehicle. It's going to be everything. And look at all this other extra technology, like with MoneyGram utilizing ODL for their FX. Yeah, and there's so much. It's really impressive.
Yeah, and that's where. Yeah, I was gonna say, well, that's where we've had a big flare up about I use the word flare, but a big dust up, I should say, about being able to send Bitcoin. They're doing these things, and one of the things that Crypto Eddie really pointed out was the fact that what they're missing in all this is the liquidity, right? The actual settlement and how that's going to actually settle, and the thing with the whole idea of the Lightning chain. Although it's Lightning's an interesting idea, but also you're sometimes passing it from person to person. Like there could be potential intermediaries in there somewhere, and everyone's overlooking the whole thing about what Ripple's really put together with the on-demand liquidity, better known as ODL, is absolutely brilliant, right? So you don't have the funding going on, and this is some of the things that are missing in some of these other. While they're really good ideas, they just don't have that sort of settlement built in with that on-demand liquidity.
And when you add it all together, that's when it really gets interesting. So you start selling NFTs on the XRP ledger, and you can sell that NFT for US dollars, for XRP, for yen, for euros, for whatever is on the XRP ledger. And, the XRP ledger will take care of that conversion for you, right? In one low cost transaction. So that's great. Whereas at the moment, it's kind of like, well, I want to buy this NFT. Well, okay, I need to use ETH to do it because it's on, this particular platform, and and I have to have some ETH. Whereas if I've got USDT or something like that, and I want to buy it, well, first I've got to convert the USDT to ETH, and that's that's just used up $20 worth of it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, and so that's a problem there. And like I said, when you kind of add all these things together with the XRP ledger, I'm really excited about what's going to come up in the next 12 months, right? There's some really interesting stuff. And there's, on the ODL side, I mean, you saw, when was it, about 2 months ago, we announced about Japan and Philippines. So SBI Remit in Japan and Coins PH in Philippines was the last one we announced to go live. We've got some more announcements coming up soon. So I'm not allowed to say what, but I am allowed to say that there will be some announcements. I'm allowed to announce an announcement, but I'm not allowed to say what the announcement is.
That's fair. That's an exciting announcement.
So I'm allowed to tease you a little bit and say that there is some ODL related announcements coming.
We got a couple questions, Matt. First of all, this one from Johnny Crypto. He wants to know: is David Schwartz Satoshi?
No, that's the most important question. Are you sure?
I don't know. I don't know.
Nobody knows.
So. He says no, and I'll believe him on that. Right.
All right. And then the second follow-up to that one, then, have you ever met Arthur Brito?
No.
This is a great one. I've been wanting that. This is the best question ever. Has anybody ever met him? Is he a real guy?
Oh yeah, he's a real guy. He's a real guy. David's met him. Tiff Hayden's met him. A few other people have met him. He's a real guy. He's just very particular about his identity, right? And doesn't want stuff out in social media, right? So, fair enough. But yeah, he's a real guy. But I mean, the funny question is, he says, has Matt met Arthur Brito? I've actually met virtually nobody from Ripple, right? At the moment, because I got hired during the middle of a pandemic, right?
That's so crazy.
My trip to Vegas was going to be the time in which I was going to meet like the majority of my colleagues that I deal with on a day-to-day basis. But as you said, I wasn't able to travel. So my wife was ill. I wasn't able to go in the end. I had everything booked and had to cancel it. So yeah, but I was going to finally meet everybody I deal with.
Right.
I've moved from the UK to Barbados, so I'm now 5 hours closer in time zone. Right, because it was an 8-hour time difference between the people in San Francisco who I mainly dealt with and me. So I used to start work at about like 3 p.m. local time, work until about sort of midnight or so. So basically, I kind of like turned my day around. And now moving here, I'm much closer because I'm the same time zone as you, Chip. You know, New York, Eastern time zone. So that side of things is much easier. I was looking forward to meeting everybody, and unfortunately I didn't. I have met David and I have met Nick Bugalis, both in the Netherlands, at 2 of the events that Vita Vins organized, one in Amsterdam and one in Amersfoort. So that's you. I don't know if you saw, these were like, what, 4 or 5 years ago now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But I drove over from the UK over there about 3 years ago. I just got my new camper van, my new VW camper van. I drove from the UK over to Amsterdam to go and meet up with everybody. So that was.
So Vita Vin, you know, he was sharing pictures on Twitter, and he's like, you know, I finally get to meet all of these people. Like, I really thought about it. Like, you know, you're talking to all these people, but to have 25, 30 people in a room together that you've known. But and it's kind of like how we know, you know, a lot of our fans, you know, like we had one of our fans, you know, somebody in the chat that, you know, he puts good stuff in there and you have them on the show, and it's so amazing to meet the people. But a lot of times you're sort of, you know, I know part of it's COVID, but there's this community out there that's sort of you connect with. You don't realize how many people you know on Twitter, and they're pretty cool. You know, they're cool people, and it's kind of nice. And so I just want, what made you choose Barbados? Had you been there before? Was it something that kind of, I mean,
I'd not been
to Barbados. Like, okay, but that's cool. But
I know it was a crazy idea, right? And it actually came about from with a former colleague of mine. And somebody just asked in the chat, talk about your time about Plone, and I'll get onto that in a second if we have time. But a former colleague of mine in Bristol, during lockdown, we finally got to the point where the pubs were just starting to be open again, and we could meet up. And so we went for a socially distanced pint, right, in the pub. And I only actually had 2 beers, but I went into that, to tell him, hey, look, I'm going to go and buy a caravan down in the south of the UK, what we call I suppose a trailer in US terms. And I'm gonna go down there, and I can just chill out and relax and do whatever down there. And I came out of the pub with, I'm moving to Barbados, right? Because
that's some good beer.
That was some good beer, exactly. He'd been there just before lockdown. It was on holiday, and I'd heard about this thing called the Welcome Stamp visa, and it's a visa that Barbados offered. This was a really clever move from Barbados. As soon as COVID hit, Barbados's tourism industry just got decimated, and so what they did was they came up with this thing and said, okay, we'll put together a visa. You can come and live and work in Barbados for a year, and we'll allow you to. The only restriction is you can't earn your money in Barbados, right? You have to have a job. You can work remotely and come here. So you're not taking a local job at all, but you're spending your money in the local economy. And it was a brilliant idea. And the thing was, well, if you could work from anywhere during a pandemic anyway, you're working at home, why not work from paradise, right? And I saw that idea and I thought, yeah, that's great, but we'd never be able to do that. And then I came out this meeting with this friend of mine. I was like, why wouldn't I do that, right? And my daughter was just coming up to the end of primary school, I guess elementary school in the US. I was going to go onto secondary school next year. So we're like, okay, now would be the year to do it. So final year, she can come here. When she goes back, she'll go into a new school anyway with a whole bunch of new kids. So my wife has got a problem with her knee that it dislocates a lot, and she's basically become disabled as a result of it. And coming over here, the warmer weather helps with her. She's basically a chronic pain sufferer. So over here, the warmth helps with the pain. We've got a swimming pool here, so she can do a bit of like rehabilitation in the pool. And it was just going to be a bit of a slower pace of life, right? Our house back in the UK is 3 stories, which is very difficult if you've got a knee that doesn't work. So here we're able to say, okay, well, let's look for a single level house. We want with a pool, so she can do some rehabilitation. Like I said, warmer weather, slower pace of life. And hey, we've been like stuck in a house for 18 months. So it's kind of, well, let's go and do go and do something. And, so luckily, we're in a position to do this. I was like, well, I'm working remotely for Ripple anyway from the UK. What difference does it make if I work remotely from here? I'm still classed as a UK employee. I'm still taxed in the UK. In terms of everything, I'm just basically here on holiday for a year, effectively, right? As far as any kind of financial or tax situation is,
or longer,
maybe. Or longer. They have announced that they will allow people to renew it for an extra year. So that may happen. I think because of the COVID and the lockdowns have gone on longer. There's the tourism industry here is still hurting, so I think that's why they said, okay, we'll allow people to extend it, because the scheme seems to be working well. Unfortunately, COVID has been rising massively here. When I first applied for the visa, they were having like 1 or 2 cases a day reported on the island. They're now like 100, 150 cases a day, which for an island, fairly small island, is fairly substantial. So unfortunately, Delta's been spreading quite a lot here, but everybody here seems to be getting on with things. Seems to be going well. So yeah.
Hey, quick shout out here from Rob XRP. Said, total respect for you, Matt. Thank you for your dedication to the XRP community. And I think that's that sentiment is voiced multiple times over. And we got a shout out XRP Rocks over here. We've got XRP Supercar. And then there was another one. I think it was a question. I'm trying to see if here we go. Let's see if I can.
Oh yeah, somebody was asking about my time in with Plone. So Plone is an open source content management system, right? A lot of people have heard of WordPress. Yeah, it's kind of think of if WordPress is a Vespa scooter, like Plone is an 18-wheeler truck, right? So Plone is like the big daddy of content management systems. It was written in Python, and I spent a lot of time in the Plone community before I got involved in XRP for a decade and a half beforehand. I was involved in the Plone community, and we used to travel and meet up everywhere. There was a conference every year in a different city. There were hackathons which we would get together and work on stuff together. And it was very much like you say, you work with people online, and you've talked to these people, and then finally you get a chance to sit down and have a beer with them, right? And it's the most fantastic thing, because somebody from Italy, somebody from Croatia, somebody from the UK, we're talking about the same shit, right? Our politicians are doing the same shit. Life that you can compare and you can contrast and you can chat and you can drink and talk shit till 3 a.m. right? And it's great. And so I spent a lot of time in that community. It's amazing community, still going strong.
Yeah, I see it's still going.
Yeah, they've got their annual conference coming up in about 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, I pulled it up. It's on their homepage. They got the conference coming up.
Yeah, exactly. And I organized a couple of the conferences in 2010 and 2014 in the UK. And that was kind of what got me into the notion of developer relations, right? Before Ripple, I used to work at IBM, and I was on their infrastructure team for a couple of years. And then somebody said to me, well, hey, look, we've got a role within developer advocacy. Do you want to join the developer advocacy team? And I realized that what I've been doing with Plone and the open source community in Plone, kind of similar to what I'm doing with the XRP community, is this developer evangelism, right? And developer advocacy. And I was like, oh, so what, you can actually get paid to do that as a job. Wow. And so that's what kind of got me into it at IBM. And I was there at IBM for about a year, doing developer advocacy. And then Warren Paul Anderson announced that they needed somebody at Ripple. And I kind of jokingly said, well, I'd love to, but I don't want to move to the US. And he kind of messaged me and said, well, we're an international company, so maybe we could hire in the UK.
Right on.
And I was like, oh, okay, well, in which case maybe I'm interested, because I didn't want to leave IBM. I was really happy at IBM. But to go and work for Ripple when I've been involved in the XRP community for the last 5 years, well, that was kind of a dream opportunity. And strangely enough, it's only because of COVID and lockdowns really that came about, because otherwise Ripple would still just be hiring in San Francisco. So,
good point.
Awesome. that there's actually a positive silver lining to that enabled me to then, apply and be hired to Ripple.
Well, you brought up WordPress, but our site's on WordPress. Holy cow, is that the worst thing ever? So we're We just moved over to Ghost. So our new Ghost site, if you ever seen ghost.org, it's phenomenal, man. I gotta tell you though, they really put, I remember when when it was a crowdfund thing, and I got it and I backed them, like I think it was 2013, and I never did anything with it, right? So I remember the name, and I gotta tell you, it's open source. So, use it in our company too, but it's wicked fast. They really brought it to a nice level. And it's like, hey, if you want to use open source, the open source version, which will always update, you can download on your servers. But if you want to have the managed, the hosted managed one, which Jeff and I went with. But I got to be, so that's why when you said Plone, it kind of reminds me of a similar type of thing. They probably have a lot more features because they've been around a lot longer. But go ahead, Jeff. You want to take that?
Yeah, so I pulled this one up here. Joshua Vanderplots. He wants to know why Hamilton.
So what's it mean? So it's a phonetic corruption of my surname Hamilton. So what happened was in 1995, I think it was, I lived in Albany, New York, and I started working for a small little like mom and pop ISP that was there when the internet first started. And when you had dial-up accounts, for those of you that are too young, dial-up accounts with a modem, you needed to dial, especially in the US, local calls were free. So you wanted to dial a local phone number and connect to a local internet service provider. So internet service providers were actually fairly decentralized, right? And each one was local to the region it was in because their catchment area was whoever would have a local phone call to them, right? So you didn't end up paying your long distance AT&T charges to connect to the internet. So there was lots of these local internet service providers. And anyway, the one in Albany happened to be like they moved and were directly opposite the street. And I was like, 17, I think at the time. I just wandered across there. I remember I wandered across with a bowl of chicken wings, right, that I just made. And I literally wandered across the street and I said to them, hey guys, you want some chicken wings? And I said, if you're interested, if you waive my $30 a month internet fee, I'll come and do tech support for you in the evenings, right? And that's how I kind of learned about a lot of stuff to do with the internet, and Unix, got into FreeBSD, which is kind of a Unix kind of similar to Linux. And kind of that got me into the kind of the internet side of things, and really got me, into, okay, what can the internet do? But anyway, their systems there, my name was M. Hamilton, right? First name Matt, surname Hamilton, M. Hamilton was my username. And when they did an upgrade on the operating systems to Sonos, the characters, it was restricted to 8 characters. So everybody's username got truncated. So M. Hamilton became M. Hamilton. And when I came in the morning, when the guys who worked with me, it was like, hey, it's Mr. Hamilton. And hey, hammer time, and kind of, that kind of thing. And that's kind of what it was. And it kind of just stuck because it's never taken on any system, right, as a username, right? Nobody's got
there you go, yeah.
Right? And it's got nothing to do with my feet, right, or anything like that. So yeah, it's a phonetic corruption of my surname, and it just kind of stuck, and it's been there since 1994 now. I'm hammered on pretty much everything.
Got that one going. That's awesome.
You actually go new social network, Hammer Toe available.
Exactly. It's somebody on Twitch has Hammer Toe, so I'm Hammer Toe 1 on Twitch.
What?
And they're not even really using it, right? I try to contact them because I want to get them.
You bring up a unique point. So there's somebody out there using on the chain altogether. We have underscore. It's either underscores or dashes, right? You kind of choose. I'm used to underscores because I grew up around Unix back in the day, Unix, so you use a lot of underscores. And somebody has it. They used it for like 2 months, like in 2009. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? Yeah, and you can't get a hold of these people. You don't even know where they are. It's like they disappeared. And it was weird. It was somebody from Japan. I was like, what relevance does on the chain have? But that's what happens sometimes. I always want to get chip, like when those new domains, came out, you could send crypto. And somebody claimed to have chip, and I chased them down. I'm like, nobody has chip, and they're like, yeah, somebody has it. They're not using it. Oh yeah, somebody did get it and use it. Yeah, are you sure? I mean, it's not like it's not a common name, but I just thought, is there someone really using it, or is this? Because I thought somebody was like squatting it, because that's what they're doing now, buying these crypto names and squatting it. The .cryptos and stuff.
I mean, I managed to actually get it at IBM as well, right? When I was at IBM, I actually had the email address hammertoe@ibm.com.
Oh
right?
my gosh.
Because I was like, right, since I'm known as Hamilton everywhere, right? It's what because there was already a Matt Hamilton. Ironically, he was the blockchain offering manager based in upstate New York, and he had Matt.Hamilton at IBM.com. So I was Matt.Hamilton1 at IBM.com, and that just pissed me off, right? And I was like, everybody's going to send email to him.
Exactly.
So, I managed to get them I put a request in for Hamato at IBM.com, and amazingly, it just got accepted. So I was Hamato at IBM.com for while I was there, which is pretty cool.
That's amazing, man. Well, it's like a lot of people. I mean, my whole life people call me Chip, but it's my surname, and it's and eventually it was Hungarian name that my grandfather changed. My father was 12. He's like, this isn't working. Nobody in the U.S. can pronounce this name. It was Chipkar, had a weird spelling, and Hungarian spelling. They're like, we're going to change it to Chip, not like the actual way you say it. I'm going to get rid of the car part. It was Chip, and so that became my surname. And it's like so. All of us have the name Chip, but it's not. But everyone calls me Chip, so that's how I've just become. I'm like, I'm just going to go with Chip. All my buddies call me Chip.
Yeah. So, and Matt, it's been awesome having you on with us, and we can go on for another hour. Outstanding. This is phenomenal. We've been
we went a little over.
Went a little bit over. Want to give a quick shout out to Hands Loaded for reaching out to you the other night in the chat and saying, hey, you got to come on the chain. And so it's outstanding. Glad that you accepted. Glad that you're here with us. This was a really, really great conversation. One that we'd love to pick up, again and have you back on again, because there's so many things to talk about as kind of a parting statement, for the crowd.
You put me on the spot there. Lots of stuff's being built. Lots of stuff is being built. The grants program, like I said, wave 2 the grants program. If you're interested, if you're a developer or a developer that wants to build something, we basically there's money there. So yeah, that's it.
We applied to the NFT because we're building a project right now with a very well-known illustrator who happens to be from over in the UK.
Okay, cool.
I was lucky enough to work with him on a project, but he's cooking something up that's remarkable. And as always, because we're strong believers in utility, that NFT is going to have some utility. So
yeah. Cool.
But anyway, okay, I'm going to throw this last one up just because. Hello, this is Alonzo E. Hello, Jeff and Chip. Really enjoyed the show. Keep it up. Can you do me a favor? Tell Matt that Sam at the Lifeboats is waiting for him on a Twitter for another round. I guess you guys went a little bit back and forth because Sam's always a good friend of the show too. But you guys have like a little dust up there in there?
Probably. We disagree on a lot of things politically.
Gotcha. Right on. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you. Well, and that's fair enough. I mean, things you're not always going to agree.
Yeah.
Fortunately, Jeff and I agree almost on everything. So when we don't, it's like, come on, man. It's like once it happens once in a while. But I just want to really thank you for coming on because what a thrill it is for Jeff and I, and having known you for so long on Twitter. And you're being such a staunch evangelist, even prior to joining Ripple, for the community and being a stand for all things that are spoken true and putting away the FUD. So I want to thank you for that because you've been around this community a long time. You are an OG and you've been doing this much longer than your tenure at Ripple. So a big thanks for me and I would imagine all the XRP community because we're seeing it all throughout the chat. So thank you so much for that.
Thanks a lot. And I'll be happy to come on another time if
I'll come out tomorrow. I'm just kidding. No, we're not going to do tomorrow. They're like, well, it's
for the next month.
Yeah, maybe the next month or two. Maybe you'll have some other cool things to share. In your journeys and stuff. But again, I mean, I know stuff's always cooking at Ripple. Jeff and I always say it. There's always great stuff coming out. Don't lose your eye on what are the things that are happening. And people lose track of the fact that Ripple's an international company. They're everywhere.
Yeah. Cool.
So, and Barbados.
Job over there. And just a quick shout out to everybody here. Anybody new and first time here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification, thumbs up. You know the drill. We do stream 6 days a week, Sunday through Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tomorrow night, we have a great show planned. Wednesday, we have the CEO of an amazing project coming on with us. And then Thursday, we have attorneys, Jeremy Hogan and John Deaton, 2 attorneys, 3 opinions. And that Thursday night is going to be absolutely outstanding. We're looking forward to that.
That's going to be good.
Also, too, I'll tell you, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. It is CEO Tammy Camp from CEO of Stronghold. What a great project that is. So she's going to be on, and really looking forward to that as well. So everybody, listen, guys, thank you for showing up like you always do. Thank you for some of the people, the people that subscribed and said, I'll give you a sub. Give us a shot, you know, and just keep on doing it. We'll be back tomorrow night. Jeff will have and I will have a bunch of news to go over. And Matt, thank you so much for, if you want to just hang out a little bit past the, we're going to just do 1-2 minutes with you, and then we'll get ready to end it. Jeff, Matt, anything left?
That's it.
It's all on the table, everybody. Guys, we'll see you on the next one. Hang out for a little bit, Matt. Guys, see you later.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.